Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial on how to get started on the Vincent Django for Beginners book using the tool set that we're going to be using for our IS439 course. And what I'm going to do as a way to get you started on the book is just to go through chapter one and kind of talk about how you would do the chapter one stuff using our tool set and kind of demonstrating it and giving you some tips and stuff. And then I'm going to leave you to work on the rest of it on your own. The assignment that you're going to have is going to be to do the tutorial in chapter five and hand that in. We'll be doing chapter one together. So you will have to decide which of two, three, four you're going to do. They're a little repetitive, but you'll get a feel for it. Okay? So we're going to begin with chapter one stuff. And chapter one is kind of is setting up your computer to do the work with the book. Um, This particular recording is for those of you who are using macOS. Uh, I've done a separate recording for those of you who are using Windows, in particular Windows 10 and 11. Okay. If you're using Linux, I don't have a video for you. Probably the closest thing is this macOS. Uh, and speak to me so I can have a chance to talk you out of using a Linux client in this course. Okay, the command line. All right, so what's the command line in Mac OS? Here we're looking at a virtual machine. Even though I'm running this on my Mac, I'm running a virtual machine so I can have just the stuff installed um, that we want. Okay, and so the first thing he talks about is the command line. So the command line on the Mac is the terminal. Okay, and you probably from prior tutorial of mine have found your way to the terminal and even saved a link to a terminal in the dock. But just in case you haven't, the way you find your way to terminal is to go to this launch pad and I'm trying to think of where it is. I think it's in mission control, or is it in other? Well, let's look. Let's look at other. Yeah, it's another. And then you click on terminal. And while this is up, if you don't already have it in your dock, well then you find the icon for this terminal and right click and choose options. And of course, uh, you want to pick keep in dock, and that way it'll always appear down in your dock. Okay, so I'm going to make this bigger, and I'm going to make the type bigger. Okay, just about the same way you do it in your browser, I guess. Not too hard to do. All right, and all the commands that Vincent talks about, which are things that you can do at the command line on the Mac, are things that you ought to just be able to do. So, for instance, he gets started with a "Who am I?" And if you were to type in "Who am I?", which I never do, it would tell you what your username is on your Mac. Okay? All right. That's pretty good. Um, And it gives you some of the nice things here is it gives you a little bit of coaching about uh, how to change the path, how to know what the current directory is, all those kinds of things, how to make a new directory, things that if you don't know how to do are worth learning how to do. And now he wants you to install Python 3. First, he talks about that on Windows, and then he talks about that on Mac. Now, for us, we've already made arrangements for this when we created a virtual environment that we're going to use for the course. Okay, so let's go find that and kind of test um, the Python 3 install. Okay. Um, While we're looking at terminal here, you can see at the beginning of our command line prompt in parens is the name of um, an Anaconda virtual environment. It's called base, and it's the base virtual environment that gets installed when you install Anaconda. Okay. So we can tell from that that Conda is installed here, and that's good. Okay, so what could we do with respect to Python? Well, one thing is let's just type uh, the command for Python at the command line and then enter. And it says the Python 3.9.15. Well, great that we have a Python 3 installed, but Python 3.9 is not what we're using in this course, IS439, in the spring of 2023. Um, what we're using in the current semester is the latest version of Python 3.10 that we have available to choose. And then when it comes to Django, it's going to be Django 4.1. Now, you might be taking this in a later semester, and I might have told you in the instructions that we're using either a more recent Python or Django, and do whatever I told you. But certainly, 3.9 is not new enough. And why did we get this? Well, we got this because if we look up here, we're currently using the base virtual environment, and apparently Python 3.9 is the default with that. So let's get out of here. We've started up Python. We can tell from this triple greater than prompt that we're at this kind of a console prompt. Uh, People call it the REPL, R-E-P-L, read, evaluate, print loop. And it's a way that you can work with the Python interpreter interactively. Okay, so how do we get out of the REPL? Well, we can type in either um, the name of the function quit or the name of the function exit. So let's do a quit, Q-U-I-T. And because it's a function, it gets parens, two parens, and then enter, and then we quit it. Okay, so we're not using the right virtual environment. How do we know which ones we have? Well, you could refer to your Conda cheat sheet, but I don't have to. I remember that I can type Conda space env space list. And it does some thinking and it says, oh, I've got three virtual environments. I've got the base, and you can tell from that asterisk on the base, that's what's currently activated. And then we have an E for Trainer Django course. That's the one we want. E for Trainer Python course. I have everybody create that, even the people in my Django course, just to give them a little bit more practice. So the one that we really want is E for Trainer Django course. So let's activate that. So Conda space activate space E4 trainer Django course. Enter. And you can see the prompt changes, and we can see that we have E for trainer Django course. Okay, so let's try to start Python again by typing the Python command. And very good, we've got Python 3.10.8. That's what we were looking for. Um, uh, so, um, you know, if you follow along with the book, you see that you can do a lot of interesting things at the REPL, and I'm not going to show you those here right now, but you can certainly do them. Okay. So how do we get out of Python? Okay. Well, uh, you call the function quit or you call the function exit. We've already done quit once. Let's do exit. E-X-I-T, and then a set of parentheses. Enter. Yep, that quit it too. Exit or quit will get you out. Okay. So, how do we clear our terminal? Well, on the Mac, we do it with clear. And there it is. I got rid of all this stuff. All right, so let's go find our book, which I think is hidden underneath here. Here it is. So we have our Python 3 all taken care of. Okay, virtual environments. Okay, as you've already seen, we have a virtual environment capability installed. We're using the one from Anaconda. Okay. He recommends that the user use an older one called venv. Okay, certainly very popular. We're not going to use it. One of the two reasons why we're not going to use it. One is many of the people in my classes want to do work in data science, and most of the data science packages are best used when you configure them using Anaconda. And because of that, I want people to get a chance to use Anaconda. So that was the original reason why we were using the Anaconda infrastructure set. One of the benefits that the Anaconda infrastructure set has over venv is venv virtual environments. They become they build a directory in your project, in your PyCharm project, and then they put all of the Python package files into that, and that can be uh, a lot of file space taken up by your virtual environment. So then when you go to submit your project on Canvas, okay, by zipping up the directory, you're zipping up the VM as well. And it's just too big. It's piggish, okay? So that's the other reason why we're not using venv, because we like the kind of Anaconda virtual environment architecture where the virtual environment directory is not in our project. We just have to tell PyCharm where it is, and it's completely happy to use it somewhere else on the disk drive. Okay? So you don't need to do any of this stuff having to do with the virtual environment. By the time you've gotten here, you've already done my other tutorials, and you have created your virtual environment E439 Django course. Okay, install Django. Do we have to do that? No, it should be part of our virtual environment. So how could we check that? Well, let's just go uh, let's come back here to terminal. And again, you can see we're using E4 Trainer Django course, but just in case you forgot, okay, uh, what if we were on another virtual environment like base? Well, I can force that to happen by typing in conda activate, activate base. Okay, and now we've got base. So that's the wrong one. Okay, and okay, and then I think, well, what are my virtual environments and where are they? Well, I can just use the conda command. And again, I think when I had you guys create the virtual environments, I showed you how to download the conda cheat sheet for working at the command line. So this is on the conda cheat sheet. You can type in conda space env space list, and then you get a list of the virtual environments. Again, you can see that a base is the one that's activated. That's why it has the asterisk. Okay, and then we can just type in conda space activate space E4 Trainer Django course. Enter, and then you can see that we're there. Okay, now how do we know that we've got the packages that we were expecting to have? Well, you can just use another conda command, conda list, and it'll show us the packages that are in this virtual env, and you can see that we've got Django 4.1, that's what we wanted, and you can see that we've got Python 3.10, and that's what we wanted. So we have what we want. That's great. We're in great shape. Okay, well, let's go back to our book and see what he's going to have us do next. Okay, so he's going to have us create our first Django project. Okay, and you might know this from working with PyCharm with just Python, but PyCharm projects are just directories or folders in the directory system, and that's what Django projects are. Okay, they're just PyCharm projects that have special characteristics. Okay, so we're just going to be creating a folder or directory with a proper name, and then the the thing we need to do is we need to initialize the project, and when we initialize the project, a whole set of files are generated under the project in a directory tree that represents the files that we need to get started with our Django project. So here you can see Vincent is kind of showing us what we're going to create. And how does he create it? Well, he creates it at the command line. And I'm not going to do that first. I'm going to do it another way first. Okay. And then I'm going to do it through PyCharm. Okay. And then we'll come back, we'll do it his way, because his way allows us to get the names of the directories exactly like he would prefer in order to follow the instructions in his book. Okay? So now I can tell you this. If you look at the layout of the directory, okay, in a Django project, you have a top level directory or folder that has the name of the project. And then you have another folder inside of it that has some name, Not everybody gives it the same name. Okay. And um, that's the name of the directory that holds, you call them a lot of things. I think the best name for these are configuration files. Okay. Um, I think in my tutorials for EZU I call them metadata files. Well, that's probably not a well chosen name, but that's what I was calling them a couple years ago. Um, and so the question is, what do you call this internal directory? Okay. And different groups of people within the Django community call this internal configuration directory different things. Okay. Some people name it the same as the name of the project. Okay. Now, uh, uh, Vincent doesn't name it the same as the project. And when we come back to do it his way, he's going to name this internal kind of configuration directory. He's going to name that Django project. And then he's going to name the overall directory that holds it. That's going to be the name for the overall Django project. Okay. Now, there are some people who call this um, oh, there's another pretty influential Django book writer that he likes to call the directory config. Okay, and so for a couple of years I was calling it config. Okay, uh, now let me show you what Django does if you just create a project the Django way. Okay, so let's shrink this. So let's go. I want to show you what happens in PyCharm Professional. Okay, I might have said Django, but I meant PyCharm Professional. So I want a new project. I'm going to click on that. Okay, and I want it to be a Django project. Okay, so that's good. Now it's scanning packages. All right, it's ready for us. Um, Now it's putting it with all my other PyCharm projects. That's okay. You're going to have to decide where yours are going to go and just back up over this and put the name in for the directory that you want to hold your projects. It can be whatever you want it to be. Okay, Django project is probably not the name that I want. So I'm going to call this first January 2023 Django. Okay. All right. So I'm pretty well sure I haven't already used that name. Okay. Now, in this middle column, uh, do I want to do I want to create a new virtual environment? No. We always create our virtual environments in Anaconda Navigator and then we point to them from here. So we want to go to this second radio button, previously configured interpreter, and it says Python 3.10, E for trainer Python course. Well, that's not what I want. I want E for trainer Django course. Let's look at the drop down. Can I pick E for trainer Django course? I can't. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the right, click on the link for add interpreter. Okay, and then the top entry, click on add local interpreter. And it pops up a dialog that these are new. This behavior where we get the dialog box that we see here. PyCharm Professional PyCharm has only been doing this since like last December 1st or something like this. So this is sort of a new way that it works. Okay. So in the left panel, we want a Conda environment. Okay. And then I like to click this load environments. Okay. And then we've got use existing environment. That's fine. That's the one we picked. And then from the drop down, can I see the one I want? Yeah, I can. E439 Django course. It loaded that up when I clicked load environments. And then I click OK. Okay, now it's going to be it's it's got the right virtual env, but there are more settings. So let's look at this. The template language, we're going to use the Django template language. The templates folder is called templates. That's fine. The application name, we're not generating a Django app in this one yet, so we leave that blank. The check mark for enable Django admin should be checked. And now we're just going to click the button for create. And there we go. And there's our project created for us. And it's giving us tips. They drive me crazy. I usually turn theirs off. And it's giving us some other things. So here's where we are. This looking pretty good. So let's look at this. Interestingly, so the top level directory is the name of the project, okay? And then there is inside of it another directory that holds these configuration files that has the same name as the top level directory, okay? So this having the configuration directory have the same name as the overall project. Um, this has been this has been a practice that people have followed for quite a while. A number of influential writers and trainers um, have kind of tried to get us away from that. Okay, and we're going to see that Vincent is going to want us to call that directory Django project. Okay, that's not what we've called it here yet. Okay, again, I think I mentioned somebody who called it config. Okay, that's not a bad name either. Those I think are two pretty good names. Um, but the default is the name of the project and the name of the configuration directory are the same. Um, I remember right when we get to EZU, this is how we're going to have it. The name of your project and the name of your configuration directory are going to be the same. It confuses people sometimes, but that's the way it is. Okay, so this isn't the way that Vincent does it. We'll go back and generate one his way. Okay, and then we'll take it from there. And it's opened up a couple of the files. That looks fine. Okay, now um, when we first connected up the right virtual environment, if we look down here on the bottom line, um, and on the very right side, we've got the name of the virtual env, but there would have been kind of working messages here that said uh, downloading skeletons. It does all these kind of things. There are times when you see activity happening on the bottom line for your project that you might not be able to do all the actions that you'd like to do. You have to wait for this to calm down and resolve. Okay, and this resolution, I think this is the activity that they call indexing. Okay, so this says the indexing was took 23 seconds and it was over 3 minutes ago. Okay, so if any of the things that we're going to try to do now you're having a hard time doing, check and make sure that your indexing has already completed. Okay, that might be what's holding you up. Okay, let's just run the server in order to see whether we have a project. So how will we do that? Well, we can go up to the menu, go to Tools, and then pick Run Manage.py Task. Okay, and that's going to pop up a window down at the bottom. Okay, and then there's a manage.py command called run server, all one word, run server, enter, enter. Okay, and then it gives us a URL for the server. We click on that, and it opens up the Django welcome page. And you can see this is Django 4.1. This is the right thing. So this is about all we do in chapter 1. We configure a project. We start the server. This thing that we started is called the Django Development Server. Okay, and we check that we're able to get this welcome page to come up, and it's got the right version of Django and all that stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's close the browser. Okay, how do we stop the server? Well, you'll see in the Vincent book, he talks about how to stop a server at the command line, and that you do it with a Control C or Control break. Now, on the Mac, how would you do that? Um, well, it just when we're in this little window in a PyCharm, uh, there's no way. Uh, I forget whether I would be doing it with a Control C or a Command C. I can do these things all I want. It doesn't stop it. Because this is a dedicated window in PyCharm, I've got to go to this red stop button and click on that, and then it will stop it. Okay. Now this little window that we have, and again, I'm going to close that window. Okay, and then I'm going to go back up and go to the menu Tools, run manage.py task. Okay, and it didn't pop up the window again, but there's a tab for the window down here. It never really closed it. Okay, that's that. Now this is a special feature of PyCharm Professional. Okay. Um, there is a program that is generated for our project. It's called manage.py, and it's a utility program that we do a lot of our work in Django with that. Okay. And every time you run it from the command line, you have to type in Python space manage.py space and then the command like run server. And so what the PyCharm people have done is that they've created this little window that just keeps feeding whatever you type to the manage.py program without you specifically having to type Python space manage.py. Okay. Do you absolutely need this? No, you don't. In fact, I'll show you the alternative. Now, this is my favorite way to work in PyCharm with Django, so this is what I recommend, but it isn't the only way to do it. Again, the only command that we've learned so far is run server, runserver, and we say enter, it prompts us enter again, and then it cranked up the server. Okay, and then we get up the test page. Okay, now we can have a problem in working with these tools on macOS that doesn't seem to happen. It doesn't seem to happen when people work on Windows, and that is when you go to start the server. What if you started the server before, okay, and you never stopped it? Okay. Well, what would that look like? Okay, so let's close this project without stopping the server. Okay, it doesn't warn us that we never stop the server, right? And let's say, okay, let's open up that project again. All right, that's fine. And then we might say, oh, I want to run that manage.py task. Go up to Tools, run manage.py task. Still working fine. Okay. And they go, oh, I want to run the development server. Well, that's called run server. Enter, enter. Ah, but now it says error, that port is already in use. Well, when we stop PyCharm, okay, it doesn't automatically go kill that server. Now, in Windows, it seems to automatically go kill that server, and it just has to do with the way that they implement the tools on the two platforms. So, how could I? And then it usually happens to me. I say, "Oh, I forgot to stop that damn server." So, how can you stop it? Okay. Well, uh, we want to go to a utility program called Activity Monitor. And I don't think I have Activity Monitor up that I see. So let's go look for that. So again, we go to Launchpad and look at Activity Monitors just to the right of Terminal. So click on that. And you see that comes up. And while you have it down there in the dock, right click and pick Options, Keep in Dock. Okay, so you have that. Now, you want to kill that server. What's that called? It's not called PyCharm. If you kill this, you'll kill PyCharm. It's called the version of Python that you have. So right now we're using Python 3.10. So when we're looking for the server, it's just called Python 3.10. Last year we were using Python 3.9. So we were looking for Python 3.9. Next year we'll be using Python 3.11. So we'd be looking for Python 3.11. So you're looking for that Python interpreter that's running your server, and you just highlight it. You go up to the top and you click on the X to stop it. And it says, do you really mean it? And then click on quit, and then it'll stop. Okay, so now you can close your activity monitor and you can come back here and you can type run server again. Enter, enter. And there it goes. Okay. Now this is a problem that my Windows folks don't typically have, but I know I do this to myself when I'm doing PyCharm development. I do it at least once a day. And on really bad days, I do it 4 or 5 times. Okay, so you can expect it to happen to you. Okay, but when you see that warning that the server's already running, again, if you forgot to stop it, you can go find Activity Monitor and then Python 3.10 and then the X to close it and then quit. And when you come back here, you can see that it actually quit. Pretty cool. Huh? All right. Now, what if I've had some problems historically. Then with people who are using this on Windows, never I recall the Mac, but it could happen. They go to run this manage.py task and it doesn't want to work. Okay. All right. The alternative is to work in the terminal. Okay. And I'm not saying go back out to the command line and work in that terminal there, although you could, but that's not as helpful as It turns out that there is, in this list of tabs down the bottom, there's a tab for terminal. And if you click on that, it'll open a terminal window. Okay. And the nice thing about the terminal window is, oh, well, it does a couple of things. One is it makes sure that your virtual end is activated. Okay, that's good. The other thing is it puts you in the directory for your project. So if we type ls, which is how you can get a directory list, uh, we'll see that um, we'll see that we're actually in the project directory. Pretty cool. Okay. Um, Now, and again, if we want to clear that, we can say clear. It works just like a regular terminal. It's just embedded in PyCharm. Now, what if we wanted to do some that, there's a whole bunch of tasks that we do that we learn how to do with manage.py. We can do them all at that manage.py cancel, or we can come over here and do the same thing. We just have to remember to type Python space manage.py space command run server, enter. Uh, and there you go. You can click on the link and you've got that going. All right. Now, how do you stop this server? Okay. Okay. You don't have the problem here that you're in a window where you have to use the red stop button. It says to use Control C, and I think that'll work for us. So let's just use Control C. Yeah, that worked. So I used Control C and it got the job done. Okay. So again, I prefer not to work in this console. I like this manage.py console. Once you start it the first time, then you can find a tab for it down here, like we found the terminal tab. Uh, I prefer to work here. Okay. I like to show you the other because sometimes my manage.py console doesn't work for everybody. So then you have to use the terminal. But if you prefer to use the terminal, it'll work just fine. Okay. Okay. Now this does just about everything we want to do, but I just want to point out that the directory structure is not the same as the structure that's being shown in the chapter 1 of the Vincent book. Okay. So how would we do that? Well, we wouldn't create our project structure with PyCharm. We wouldn't go to PyCharm and ask for a new Django project. We would create the project directories at the command line. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so I'm just going to close this and close PyCharm. And let's go back to our terminal. Okay, and let's type clear here. Okay, and let's do a dir to see where we are. Oh, I'm sorry, not a dir, an ls. I was just over on Windows with our folks. Okay, so we're not in PyCharm projects. Okay. Um, okay. So that's where we are. Let's go back to the, well, let's go to PyCharm projects. So if we want to get to the PyCharm projects directory, we have to do a cd change directory, PyCharm projects. And then if we do an ls, we'll get a listing. And here's the one that we just created, 1st January 2023 Django, right? Okay, that's good. And you can see I have some other kind of testing ones that I've done recently. All right. Um, so, so now that I'm in PyCharm projects or whatever directory that I want to be in where my projects are going to be, okay, the first thing that I want to do, and I will confess this isn't exactly what um, Vincent does in chapter one, but it's what he eventually has us do. Wherever you're going to be, uh, wherever you're going to be creating your projects, like my, again, my projects and PyCharm projects, go there and create a new project directory. Okay. Now he doesn't tell us what to call this one. Okay. And so I think we're just going to call it. We're going to do MD for make directory. It's going to make a sub directory of PyCharm projects. Okay. And let's call this chapter underscore one. Okay. Enter. Um, what does he tell us to do? Uh, hang on. My command line skills are rusty here. I'm going to pause while I try to unembarrass myself. Hang on. Aha. Well, I don't know. I had a brain freeze. Make directory is mkdir. So mkdir space chapter one. Okay. And then we want to change to that directory. So cd space chapter one. Okay. And you can see in our prompt that we're in the chapter one sub directory. So that's going to be the top level directory in um, our Django project. Okay, so let's come over here. What we want to do is we want to generate all of this stuff below. Okay, we want this internal configuration directory to be called Django project. So we want that in our project directory. We want manage .py in our project directory. We don't want that dot .vn because we're not using their same choice for virtual environment tools. So how do we do this? Well, we do this by typing in Django -admin space start project space Django project. That's going to be the name of this subdirectory space dot. That means make it right here. Okay, so let me type that in. Okay. Django -admin space start project, all one word, space Django underscore project dot, enter. And it does some work and that's it. Now, I've had problems historically that I try to run this and it says it can't find Django admin. That's usually because I'm in the wrong virtual env. Okay, so if it says it can't find Django admin, you probably don't have Django in your currently active virtual env. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's do an ls so we can see uh, directly in our project. Our project is called Chapter 1. Directly underneath, we have a subdirectory, Django project, and then we have the file manage.py. And let's do a cd change directory to Django underscore project. And let's do an ls on that. And then you can see that these configuration files are in that configuration directory. And following the Vincent approach, and it may not just be his, I mean, he may have a whole bunch of followers in calling this configuration directory Django project. It's a pretty good name. Um, but that's the way that works. Okay. Are we going to test it here? Well, we could test it here. I mean, he tested here at the command line. But what you have to know is that when you hand your work in, we, meaning me, the instructor, and the TA and or the grader, we're going to test it using PyCharm Professional. So you need to test it using Python Professional, PyCharm Professional before you hand it in to make sure that it is ready for us to test it using those tools. Okay, so let's crank up PyCharm Professional again. Okay, and we don't want to fire up a previous project. We want to click on Open. Okay, and PyCharm Projects. And we want to open chapter 1. So highlight that and click Open. And say that we trust it. Okay. Now, the thing is that it's not configured to run in PyCharm yet. Well, why wasn't it? You know, the last one was. Well, you remember we created that with PyCharm. Okay, so as we created it, it got configured. Okay, so this one, it's a proper Django project, but it's not a proper PyCharm Django project. So we need to do some configuration. Now, some configuration you could do, you could go down here where it says no interpreter. You could click on that, and then you could pick the virtual M that you need. Okay. Now, the only reason I'm not going to have you do that right now is that when you do that, you don't get a chance to configure all the settings that we need to configure. It works most of the time, but not all the time. Okay, so you could try this. Or the other way to configure is to go up to the menu, click on PyCharm, and then Settings. And now there's a lot of configuration here. So about halfway down under Project, you open that up, and then click on Python Interpreter. And you can see we don't have any interpreter, so let's take the drop down. And here we've got E439 Django course already. Okay, so if that's there, we can pick it. Or if E439 Django course wasn't here, we could click on Add Interpreter, Add Local Interpreter, and we get back into something that I showed you before. So you have to, on the left side, say it's a Conda environment. Okay, and then you want to click on Load Environments to make sure it loads them all up. And then you want to pick on Use Existing Environment, and then click the drop down and then pick E439 Django course. So those are two different ways that you could pick that virtual env. Okay, so if you pick the virtual env, and now you're going to see all the packages, and these are the right ones. Django 4.1 and Python 3.10. That's great. Are we done? No, there's a configuration that has to be done for Django. So you need to come down under Languages and Frameworks and then click on Django. Now, it turns out that this is properly configured, and that's great, but you're not always assured that it will configure on its own. So what has to be set here? Well, first of all, the checkbox, Enable Django Support, needs to be checked. If it's not checked, you have to check it. Okay, Django project root, that's a pointer to the directory that holds your overall project. Settings, points to the settings file within that configuration directory. Okay, that's pointing to the right one. Manage script is pointing to the manage.py file within your overall Django project directory. That's pointing to the right one. So that's properly set. Historically, when we've clicked on these, they're not pointing at the right thing. So maybe PyCharm's getting a little better at finding its way. And now we click on OK. All right. And again, you can see that we've got some action here. It's it's downloading these pre-built shared indexes, and there's work that's going on. So it's possible that I may go up to tools and look for run manage .py.test. It's possible it may not be ready yet. Now here it says, looks like the configuration was over a minute ago, so that's the reason it is available for us. So run manage.py task. Okay, and now we just have to type run server, enter, and then enter again. Okay, and then click on the link, and there we go. This is our Django welcome page for Django 4.1. So that seems to be working just fine. So close the browser. Remember to stop the server. Okay, and then the question is, could we have run this from the terminal? Okay, let's look at terminal. Click on terminal, and that opens. So what if we did it manually? If we typed Python manage.py space run server, would that have worked? Yeah, that would have worked too. Okay. And to stop the server here, we just need Control C, and we stop the server. And then we can close that window. Okay. All right. So we're just about done here. Okay. So that's your first Django project. He tells you how to run the development server. See how he does it from the command line. Python manage.py run server. Okay, and that's it for the chapter. He talks about two things: text editors, and that kind of stuff. I prefer that you use PyCharm Professional. It'll be easier to support you, so we want to do that. And he talks about installing and using Git. You're free to begin using Git, okay, when you want to. But I'm not going to roll it out quite yet because I don't want to use the airtime for it. Another thing that he mentions here, and I forgot to say this in the Windows version, is historically, people in Django have used single quotes or apostrophes around strings. Okay. Now, something that's been changing this is that there is a tool for checking your code style and for even reformatting your code according to a really strict set of style rules. And the product is called Black. I think it's called Black in that the color of the ink in type. traditionally black. So it's a typography kind of word, right? And and so there are a lot of people, not everybody in Python is going to black, but he kind of turns you how to turn on the black formatter there. And he says if you do, then all of your single quotes are going to be turned into double quotes. Okay. Now, and then he goes so far to say somewhere that while not all the Django stuff follows the black style guide, that soon it will. And he is involved in the high level Django support. So maybe this is true. Maybe this is actually coming along. I haven't seen it anywhere else but in what he has said. So you'll find that I use these uh, single quote apostrophes everywhere. You're free to use whatever you want so long as it leads to good Python. But this idea that we're going to follow the black default preference and that we're going to use double quotes all over the place, I'm not following that, and you can feel free to not follow that too. Okay. So this is the end of the chapter. Okay. So you don't have to hand in this work from chapter one. Likewise, you don't have to hand in the work from chapters 2, 3, and 4, because the work that we're going to be handing in is the tutorial from chapter 5. Okay, let's just go take a peek at that. Okay. Now, a couple of things is uh, he takes this approach to tutorials that, he has to do one where you're just getting set up. Then he has to do in chapter 2 you do a little bit more, in chapter 3 you do a little bit more, in chapter 4 you do a little bit more, and then in chapter 5 you're really doing a bit of everything. Now if you jump right to chapter 5, a problem that you're going to have is that he's very terse about what he wants you to do, because he thinks he's already kind of walked you through these things in previous chapters. So jumping right from chapter 1 to chapter 5, it might be kind of drastic. I mean, I might do chapter 2 and 3, maybe, or I might do chapter 2 and then 4 or something like this. When you get here, okay, the question is, what are you going to call your project? Now, historically, I have people call their project something that includes their name. Okay. And on your first project, that can be kind of confusing. You'll notice here that he says the new directory for our code called blog. So he's calling his Django project blog. So all of you can call your Django project. When you create a directory, you can call the directory that you create just blog. So we're all going to hand in something of the same name. Okay, and then just follow along, and that's it. Okay, so what do we do when we're done with a Django project and we've tested and we're ready to hand it in for the assignment? Let's go look at that. Okay. Um, so let's go look at the Finder. Okay. And I'm going to look at, oh, this always drives me crazy that I can't find, hang on a second. Uh, I can't find my way to my own drive. This drives me absolutely insane. Okay, so you can see documents, but these things aren't under documents. They're under my ID. But on the Mac, you don't automatically get a link to your ID. So if you don't have a link to your ID here in Finder, here's what you can do. Go up to the menu to Go, okay? come down to the next to last one, go to folder, okay? Type in just slash, okay? And then it tells you where do you want to go. Pick users, okay? Now, here's my, if I go here, users, no, just go to users, okay? I pressed enter. And I could say I've got shared and I've got trainer one. What if I wanted this trainer one always to be something that I can find in the Finder? Well, I can just click this and drag it and drop it right after downloads. Okay. So now when I go to my Finder and I want to go to my home directory, I just click on it. And there it is, PyCharm projects. Okay. Now, what was the one that we created? The one that you're going to be looking for is going to be called blog, right? But we did one, we called it chapter one, right? So just come here, highlight it, right click, uh, compress it, okay? And it's going to create chapter1.zip. This zip file is what you submit to Canvas. That's it. Okay, and what are we going to do? We're going to download your zip file. We're going to unzip it and we're going to open it with PyCharm Professional and we're going to try to run your project. And provided that you've configured it the right way with a virtual environment of the right name and you configured all the Django directories the right way, we should be able to just open it up and we should be able to do this. We should be able to come in here after we open. We should be able to say tools, run, manage .py.task. Oh, that was already open. So then we go there, and we ought to be able to do a run server. And then we ought to be able to click on this and prove that you got it to work. All right, so that's how you do it. I can't tell you exactly how much of 2, 3, 4 to do, okay? If you want to be safe, do all 2, 3, and 4. I think it might get you a little bored, okay? 5's the big deal, all right? And of course, I'm available to help in labs, and this should be fun. When I did it, I had a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that you will too. And so I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye bye.